The morning sun hadn't yet broken through the clouded windows of the loading dock when Michael tightened the second-hand tie around his neck. His shirt was crisp, but it was the only one he had left without a missing button. He glanced at the brown paper bag sitting on the counter. Inside, 3 folded pieces of aluminum foil, leftovers from 2 nights ago, packed with care. His daughter, Rosie, had scribbled Dad's special lunch on the outside with a glitter pen. Her handwriting looped like vines around a crayon heart. Michael tucked the bag gently into his worn backpack and headed out. The restaurant's back door was already propped open with a brick. Grease-licked floors, clanging pots, and the usual smell of fryer oil greeted him. He greeted them back with a quiet nod and a borrowed apron by noon. As laughter echoed from the dining area, Michael slipped into the dim storage closet. His sanctuary. He pulled out the foil, peeled it open. Chicken, dry and cold. But he ate it with slow gratitude. He always did. He scrolled through his phone, an old photo of Rosie and her late mother in the park. The piano in the background, their smiles had music in them. From outside the closet door came the muffled sound of utensils, clinking, and a burst of laughter. He closed his eyes for a moment. The contrast was loud. Later that evening, Rosie greeted him at home with her usual burst of light. She held up a drawing with proud eyes to stick figures sitting at a round table. One day she whispered, "We'll eat in a place like that." Michael smiled. But something inside him cracked. He hung the drawing on the fridge. Right beside the overdue bills, steam hissed from the kitchen line as Michael wiped sweat from his brow. Lunch rush always felt like a storm, loud, fast, and impossible to outpace. He kept his head down, scrubbing pans, moving trays, doing everything no one else wanted to. We ordered too many staff meals again. Want one? Michael didn't even lift his eyes. I brought mine, thanks. Eddie frowned. It's free, man. Michael forced a small laugh. So's pride. He rinsed his hands, dried them on his apron, and retreated to the closet in back. His usual hiding spot, the overhead bulb flickered like it always did. He sat on the overturned bucket, unwrapped his cold foil bundle, and stared at the same 3 chicken strips he'd had yesterday. And the day before, he took a slow bite. Outside the cracked door, the hum of the restaurant lived on, glasses clinking, orders shouted, laughter spilling from tables. Michael chewed in silence, alone in a space that smelled like bleach and cardboard. That's when he noticed her, a figure in the doorway. New girl, waitress, young mid, sharp eyes, soft hands gripping a dish towel. She didn't speak. Just looked. Michael straightened up. You need something? She shook her head. No, just didn't know anyone ate in here. He folded the foil closed, gently. Some of us don't need much space. She smiled, small, unreadable, then walked away. Michael exhaled slowly and listened as her footsteps faded into the kitchen noise. He leaned back, heart unexpectedly heavy. That night, Rosie asked, "Did you make a new friend today?" Michael didn't answer. He just stared at the dish towel she left behind, still folded on a shelf. The next day, Michael kept his eyes forward. He washed, stacked, wiped. He didn't look toward the front, didn't listen for footsteps behind him. But when the lunch rush slowed, a shadow crossed the prep table. "Hey," her voice was lighter this time. "Careful. Service runs smoother when the whispers do." She smiled at that. "You always talk like that." He shrugged. "Only when I'm tired." She glanced at the brown paper bag beside him. "That yours?" "Yes, it's cold. So am I most days." She hesitated, then reached for it anyway. He reacted before thinking, hand out, sharp inhale, "I've got it." She stopped, held his gaze. I wasn't judging. Silence stretched between them. Steam curled from the stovetop, loud enough to feel like pressure. "I can warm it," she said softly. "If you want." Michael looked at the bag. At the foil corners bent from reuse, at his hands red, cracked, honest. "No one's done that for me in a while," he said, more confessing than speaking. She nodded once. "Then let me." Minutes later, she returned with the same food, warm now, smelling almost new. She placed it down like it mattered. Michael didn't thank her. He just ate. The next morning, before his shift, he wrapped an extra sandwich. Not fancy. Just peanut butter, cut in half. He left it on the shelf in the storage closet with a folded napkin. By noon, it was gone. In its place, a note, still warm, still yours. Michael let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. something had shifted by the end of the week. Their rhythm had settled into something unspoken. At 12:47 p.m., Michael left his usual sandwich half a banana on the side this time, wrapped in wax paper. By 1:10, it vanished. In its place, a single chocolate truffle and a note that said, "Try something sweet today." He didn't smile, not out loud, but his eyes lingered on the handwriting longer than he meant them to. The next day, it was her who left something first, a tangerine peeled, segments arranged like a sunburst on a napkin. "A quiet art by Thursday," he wrote back. "Your kindness is louder than your footsteps." He almost didn't sign it. But in a hurried scrawl, he added, "-M. Friday" came with a cinnamon roll and no note. But when he bit into it, there was a soft hum in his chest, something rising. That evening, Rosie was sketching again, legs folded under her. Crayons scattered like candy. "Who brings you the treats at work now?" she asked, chin tilted, eyes half teasing. Michael paused. "Just someone I work with, a girl someone." He raised an eyebrow. Rosie grinned. "You gonna marry her, or just keep giving her sandwiches?" Michael laughed, "For real this time. I think we're still in the sandwich phase." She held up her new drawing. A man with a lunchbox and a girl with a notepad, sitting side by side under a tree. "I think she likes you," Rosie said. Michael didn't answer, and wrote a name he hadn't used in years. Eleanor. The lunch crowd was heavier than usual. Tables overflowed, voices clashed, plates clattered. Michael moved faster than his body wanted him to, grabbing dishes, clearing tables, wiping spills with the efficiency of someone used to being invisible, until he wasn't. "Mike," barked Rick, the restaurant manager, his voice slicing through the noise. "You wipe tables like you're cleaning your dining room at home." "Oh, wait, do you even have one?" Laughter followed, loud, cruel. Michael froze, dish rag in hand. His knuckles whitened, but his face didn't flinch. Just one deep breath, eyes lowered. Someone else might have spoken up, but not him. "You know, Rick," came a calm voice from behind. "You say stuff like that again, I'll wipe the floor with your ego." It was her, Eleanor. Rick's smile soured. "You siding with the help now?" "I'm siding with decency." Michael didn't look up. He couldn't. Instead, he backed away, returning to the sink, heart pounding louder than the kitchen clatter. When the noise had died down, and only the low hum of post-lunch cleanup remained, she passed by him in the hallway. She asked, voice softer now. "Fine," he replied, eyes on the floor. "I'm used to it. You shouldn't have to be." That night, Rosie was unusually quiet during dinner. Michael noticed. She finally said, "Someone at school made fun of my shoes." He looked at her, really looked. "Did you say anything back?" "No," she murmured. "I just remembered how you never do either." Michael reached across the table and held her hand. "We don't fight fire with fire," he said. "We build something stronger than flames." Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. Inside, something was changing. The sky cracked open just as the last dinner plate clinked into the sink. Thunder rolled low and long, and the smell of rain swept through the back door like a forgotten lullaby. Michael pulled his hoodie tighter, stepping out onto the back alley, where the brick walls bled with water, and the street lamp flickered like it was shivering. She was already outside. Eleanor huddled under the narrow awning. Arms crossed, hair damp, waiting on a ride that hadn't come, he asked, adjusting his hood. She looked at him and smiled. "Didn't think I'd need one." Weather app lead. He stepped beside her without a word. The silence between them now, easy, the kind that didn't ask for explanations. Raindrops danced on the pavement. Somewhere distant, a slow jazz song leaked from a restaurant radio next door. Soft trumpet, quiet keys. She closed her eyes and swayed slightly, as if the music lived in her bones. Michael watched. Then, without thinking, he offered his hand. "No one's watching," he said. She raised an eyebrow, but took it. They stepped into the drizzle like two ghosts, slipping through time, moving not perfectly, not elegantly, but honestly. She laughed once. "That kind of laugh that comes from the chest?" she asked. "First time in 10 years. Her fingers tightened around his. Her eyes softened. Then she looked down at his hands, the calluses, the roughness, the shape. "You play piano," she said quietly, more statement than question. Michael's breath hitched. He looked away. "Not anymore," She didn't push, just let the rain speak for both of them. And in that puddled alleyway, something fragile was beginning. The next morning came wrapped in silence. Rosie slept in, curled beneath her blanket like a question without an answer. Michael stood at the foot of her bed, holding something in his hands, a brass key, worn at the edges. He hadn't touched it in years. By midday, he found himself in front of the old storage unit on the edge of town. The lock clicked open with a reluctant sigh. Dust billowed as the metal door creaked upward, revealing a room swallowed by shadows and old memories. And there it was, the upright piano. Scratched, faded, the left pedal long broken. But it was hers, his wife's, the one she used to play lullabies on when Rosie was still small enough to fit in one arm. Michael stepped closer. Heart pounding, he pulled off the heavy tarp, revealing the familiar black and ivory keys, some chipped, others stained with time, letting his fingers hover above the keys like ghosts remembering home. He pressed one, it sang weakly, but honest, the sound echoed in the hollow space, bouncing off boxes and the ache inside his chest. He closed his eyes. Flashback 10 years ago, sunlight on her hair, his wife's laughter filling their apartment. Rosie giggling beside her as she played. The room had smelled like coffee and morning hope. He played a chord, then another dot. And for the first time in a decade, music filled the air again. It was crooked, raw, but alive outside. The wind whispered through the cracks of the unit door, like applause too shy to be heard. Michael wiped a tear and whispered, "I'm sorry it took so long," as he stood. A small music box tumbled from the top of the piano. It still played her favorite tune. The restaurant had closed for the night. Chairs flipped on tables. Lights dimmed low. The only sound was the rhythmic drip of a faucet and the distant clatter of a pan being scrubbed in the back. Michael lingered, alone. No apron now, just his hands. He approached the baby grand in the far corner of the dining room, a showpiece more than an instrument, polished for decoration, rarely touched. But tonight, he lifted the lid. He didn't know if it was tuned. Didn't care. He sat, exhaled, and let his fingers fall, not from memory, but from something deeper. A melody spilled out, slow, aching, unpracticed. Notes wobbling at first, then settling like a heartbeat, remembering its rhythm. He didn't notice Eleanor standing in the doorway, arms crossed, mouth parted just slightly. She didn't speak, just watched. Michael's face remained still, but his body spoke, shoulders softening, hands trembling, a low chord, a pause, a high note that almost broke. He played the song his wife once hummed while stirring soup, the one Rosie used to fall asleep to, the one he buried with silence. And here, surrounded by empty tables and leftover wine glasses, he brought it back. The last note lingered in the air, like something waiting to be held. "That," Eleanor said, stepping closer, voice just above a whisper, "didn't belong in a storage unit." Michael turned, startled. He hadn't known she was there. She smiled, but her eyes were glassy. "You don't belong in that back room." He looked away, unsure what to say, unsure if he was supposed to say anything at all, but her words settled deep, deeper than the keys he'd just played. The street was quiet. Inside, something had begun to wake. The next afternoon, Michael found an envelope tucked beside the dish soap at his station. No name, just a single word handwritten across the front. Tonight, inside a folded card. An invitation, elegant script, gold trim, private tasting, 7 p.m. Back entrance. He stared at it, unsure if it was real, unsure if he should even go. By 6:45, he stood outside the rear door of the restaurant, not in uniform, but in the one button-down shirt Rosie hadn't drawn on. The hallway inside was quiet. Candles flickered at the edges of the dining room. Every table was set, white linens, crystal glasses, plated appetizers that looked too perfect to eat. He stepped in slowly. Unsure, a hostess greeted him with a nod, like she'd been expecting him right this way. She said. He followed her toward a single table near the stage. One chair, one menu. No prices. Eleanor appeared from the side, dressed not in an apron or serving tray, but in a fitted black dress. Calm, confident, radiant. "What is this?" She smiled. "A tasting. For someone whose taste I trust, I clean the floors. You play the piano." He looked down. "Is this a joke?" She shook her head. You've been eating in closets. I thought you might like a room with windows. He didn't sit right away. Just stood there, the weight of suspicion pressing on him like an old bruise. I don't want pity, he muttered. Then don't accept pity, she said gently. Accept dinner. Silence passed between them. Then a soft jazz melody rose from the speakers, the same one he played the night before. Michael sat down. Heart guarded but curious, servers moved like dancers. Everyone was watching her, and she was watching him. The flavors were delicate. Every bite layered like a song. But Michael barely tasted anything, because everyone, the staff, the kitchen crew, even Rick, kept glancing her way. Not with confusion. With reverence, he watched Eleanor move through the room like it belonged to her, because it did. A man in a tailored blazer leaned in to whisper something in her ear. She nodded once. Her hand brushed a contract he held. Michael froze. He'd seen that gesture before, once long ago, when his wife signed their first lease. Calm, certain. Practiced. The final course came a creme brulee with lavender foam, but he didn't touch it. Eleanor, he asked, voice barely above a whisper, why does everyone listen to you? She hesitated, then sat across from him. I wasn't just hired here, she said. I invested, quietly at first, my father. Left me the funds, and Michael pushed back his chair. So, you've owned it this whole time? Yes. And you didn't tell me. You never asked. He stood, jaw tight. You let me mop floors, scrape pans, eat in closets, while you played generous, kind. No, Michael, I was just a charity case to you. No, never. You think warming my leftovers and leaving notes made it better? She stood too, trying to meet his eyes. I saw someone who deserved more. You saw someone beneath you. Silence swallowed the room. Every eye turned toward them now, but neither noticed. Michael stepped back. I don't belong in this room. Thanks for the tasting. He turned and walked out past candlelight and linen, past a pianist softly playing his own melody. She didn't follow, but her hands trembled where they rested on the tablecloth. Eleanor sat alone in her apartment, the tasting room still echoing in her mind. The untouched creme brulee had been boxed. But she didn't take it home. She opened a drawer near her bookshelf and pulled out an old leather-bound journal. Tucked inside were letters, creased, yellowed, sealed, but never sent. Each one addressed to Dad. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the first. You missed my piano recital today. I looked for you in every seat. The second, they say, grief fades, but yours built walls. I climbed them for years. She kept reading, one after another. I own the restaurant now. With your money, I wish you'd see it. I wish you'd see me. The tears came quiet, sliding down her cheek without drama. Michael's words echoed in her mind. You saw someone beneath you. She hadn't. Not once. She'd seen him eating in silence, working in pain, carrying love like it was something fragile he had to protect with both hands, and she had admired it, maybe even needed it. She placed the letters back, but one slipped, fluttering to the floor. She bent to pick it up. A small drawing was tucked inside. A child's crayon scribble. A girl at a piano. A man beside her. A heart above them both. It wasn't hers. It was Rosie's. Eleanor blinked, and then she remembered. The school bulletin board. A family art project posted last fall. She'd seen it once. Admired it. Saved it. It must have slipped into her things. Somehow, she stared at the drawing like it held the answer she'd never asked for. The next morning, she stood across the street from Rosie's school. Watching children flood the gates, Rosie stood alone near the wall. No backpack, no smile, just silence. Recess was ending. Children scattered like birds, chasing laughter, stringy hair, and juice boxers. But Rosie sat quietly on a bench beneath a maple tree. Her hands folded in her lap, shoes dusty. Eyes lost. Eleanor hesitated, then crossed the road. She approached slowly, kneeling to match Rosie's height. Hey, she said gently, remember me? Rosie blinked, then nodded. You're the sandwich lady. A smile touched Eleanor's lips. That's me. They sat in silence for a beat. I liked the one with honey, Rosie added. Most people forget the honey. I won't again, Eleanor said. May I sit? Rosie scooted over. Eleanor glanced at her hands. small but steady. You okay? She asked. Rosie shrugged. School's loud, she said. I don't like loud. I don't either, Eleanor whispered. Rosie looked up. Dad says it's okay to be quiet. That music still happens in quiet. Eleanor swallowed hard. Does he still play? She asked carefully. Rosie shook her head. Not anymore. Eleanor's voice dropped to a whisper. Why not? Rosie picked at a thread on her sleeve. He says it makes him remember too much. Then quieter. He only started playing again when he met you. Eleanor blinked. He used to hum again, Rosie continued. But now, he just folds things, like paper, like he's trying to hide inside them. Eleanor stared at the little girl in front of her, wise beyond her years. Carrying the weight of silence the way her father did, she reached into her purse and pulled out a folded napkin. I'm going to fix something, she said. Would you help me? Rosie looked up, curious. Fix what? Eleanor smiled, though her voice trembled. His silence? The restaurant was closed to the public that night, but inside, it pulsed with quiet purpose. Eleanor moved like a conductor, preparing for a symphony. Her team followed with silent precision, polishing glass, adjusting lights, rearranging the dining room like it was a stage. In the center of it all, the grand piano gleamed beneath a soft golden spotlight. She unfolded a worn napkin and placed it gently atop the piano. The one Rosie had once drawn on, now smoothed and framed in a tiny glass box. A tribute, a reminder. Then she walked to the bulletin board near the entrance. She tore down old event posters, corporate flyers, promo ads, and replaced them with something handwritten in elegant script. An evening of quiet music, a tribute to the working hands who never stopped creating. Underneath it, featuring MJ musician, Father Soul, she didn't sign her name. Just watched as her staff read it in silence. No questions, just soft smiles in the kitchen. Rick leaned on the counter, arms folded. You're really doing this? He asked. Eleanor looked him dead in the eye. He's not just a worker. He's a story. Rick scoffed. Why him? She placed a linen roll of silverware in his hands, because he never asked for anything. Back in the dining room, candles were lit. Programs were folded. A seat was reserved in the front row, with Rosie's name handwritten on the place card. Outside, the chalkboard sign read, Tonight only, the sound of redemption, and tucked under the last plate on the last table was a final note. For the man who gave without expecting to be seen, we see you now. Eleanor adjusted the lights. It was time. Michael stood outside the restaurant, hands in his coat pockets, unsure why he came. He hadn't been invited. Not officially, but the chalkboard sign caught his eye. Tonight only, the sound of redemption. He almost turned away. Then he saw Rosie's drawing framed, glowing through the front window. Something pulled him inside. The lights were dim, but warm. The air smelled of roasted herbs and polished wood. Every table was filled, but not with the usual crowd. No suits, no expensive heels. Just people. Working hands. Weathered faces. Familiar uniforms. He stood frozen until a soft voice beside him said, This way? A hostess guided him down the center aisle. At the end of the room, the piano gleamed like an old friend waiting to be forgiven. A single chair sat beside it. His tat, he blinked. Then, slowly, hesitantly, walked toward the light. People turned, nodded, smiled. Not politely, but like they knew him. Like they'd been waiting. He sat. A quiet settled then. From the crowd, Rosie emerged, dressed in a tiny blue dress, curls clipped back. She held a folded card. Dad, she whispered, placing it in his hand. He opened it. Inside, you don't have to play for everyone. Just for me? He looked up. Eleanor stood across the room, not as a stranger, not as a boss, but as something else now. She gave a single nod. He exhaled. His hands hovered over the keys. He pressed the first note, then another. The room held its breath. Music. Rose hesitant at first, then full, aching, beautiful. When the final note rang out, the silence was louder than applause. Then it came, thunderous, tearful, honest. Eleanor stepped forward. Eyes glistening, she was walking toward him. Eleanor stepped onto the stage like it was holy ground. She didn't speak at first. Just stood beside Michael, her hand resting near the edge of the piano, close but not touching. Michael stayed seated, eyes lowered. His chest rose with slow, quiet breaths. The applause had died down, but the room still pulsed with something thick emotion. Reverence. But I was afraid, not of you, of how much you mattered. Michael looked up, confused. Ra, I never gave you a handout, she continued. I gave you space, because you earned it with every lunch you skipped, every shift you worked, like music was hidden in your silence. He opened his mouth, but she raised a hand gently. I saw you long before I knew your name. You carried yourself like a man protecting something precious, not with pride, but with purpose. She turned to the crowd. This is the man who reminded me why I built this place. Not for the critics, not for the food magazines, but for the people who show up even when no one is watching. She turned back to him. I'm starting a new outreach program, she said. Music, mentorship, food with meaning, and I want you to lead it. As musical director, as a voice this city forgot. Michael's lips parted, stunned. I'm not qualified. You're more than qualified, she said, stepping closer. You're living proof. Rosie clapped the loudest from the front row, eyes wide, heart full. Michael looked at the crowd, at the dishwasher smiling, at Rick nodding, at the cook raising his hands in celebration. Then back at Eleanor. He asked, she smiled. Not charity, she whispered admiration. Weeks later, the restaurant smelled different. It wasn't just rosemary or fresh bread, it was laughter. Spilled crayons, soft jazz weaving through the clink of plates, the kind of music that only exists when people feel like they belong. The doors had been opened, literally and figuratively. Every Thursday, the place transformed. No reservations, no dress code, no prices, just community tables, warm food, and live music played by a man who once scrubbed floors in silence. Tapping a tambourine, offbeat and grinning like she owned the place, Eleanor moved through the room with a clipboard in one hand and a slice of peach cobbler in the other. She paused to refill coffee for an older man in a veteran's cap, tucked a napkin into a toddler's collar, hugged a single mother who whispered, "Thank you." Rick worked the dish pit, happily near the front. A chalkboard now read, "Every plate has a story. Every seat is earned." Michael finished the last note of a lullaby and looked around the room, no longer dim, no longer distant. It pulsed with color, sound, and soul. Eleanor approached with 2 bowls of stew, steam curling into the warm air. "Extra carrots," she teased. Rosie's eyes sparkled. "You remembered, of course," Eleanor said. "How else would I keep my job?" They all laughed. Then Rosie reached into her backpack and pulled out a new drawing. Stick figures again, but this time, they sat around a long table, smiling, sharing. Bulldog, she handed it to Michael and whispered, "We eat here now, Dad." He looked down at her, heart thudding like a quiet drumbeat. And for once, in a long, long time, he didn't feel small.